Ben Frank. He's a regular at New York Comedy Club.
Thank you very much. Oh, so happy to be here. Let's give it up for the Evergreen. Come on, let's give it up for the Evergreen. And the Fleetwood Community Theater, who we're raising money for tonight. When I heard what this show was for, I had to come out and do it. You know, it's a cause near and dear to my heart as a comedian. I know what it's like to go on stage and have no money. So, all right. So, you know, to help the cause, we're coming here and performing for a fee, so you have less money. That's really how we're gonna help out tonight. But I live in New York City. It's nice to get out of the city, because you guys, when we came in here, all three of us were like, why is everybody being so polite and nice to us? We're not used to this. We're used to people, rough city people, being very direct with us. Like the other day, I was walking down the street, a guy asked me if I smoke weed. I said no, and he goes, ugh, grow up. Alright? In the city, man, the drugs are everywhere. I was at a party, a bunch of people were doing cocaine, and I was shocked. Not that they were doing it, but that they were cutting lines of cocaine with a Costco card.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was like, a Costco card? How much cocaine did you buy? Just some Colombian guy there, like, this is 100% pure Kirkland signature. You got it. Yeah, no, the city has made me a very honest person, probably to a fault. Like the other day, I ran into an old acquaintance, but I didn't realize it at first. Then he told me his name, and I was like, oh no, I didn't recognize you. You look different. He goes, yeah, I got fat. And I was like, and bald. All right, you left an important part out there. You did. But yeah, I live in New York now. I've been there for about a year and a half. Before that, I lived in China. Yep, no one ever claps for that. No, you're too late. You're too late. No, I love living in New York. It's such a diverse place that you can move there and become a part of the community pretty quickly. Like I have a friend, she moved there from Cleveland about 6 months ago, and she's like, oh my God, I'm a New Yorker now. I did it. People do this thing where they move to New York and claim their New York identity immediately. It is very bizarre to me, okay? Because I lived in Shanghai for 7 years, and I was never like, oh my God, I'm Chinese now. I did it. Because you can become American, you can't become Chinese. Okay, if you're not born that way, you're out of luck. Because America, we're very idealistic. We're like, oh, it's all about the American spirit and the can-do attitude. China's like, it's genetics. Yeah. You know, because like if someone says they're becoming American, you're like, oh, they're getting citizenship. If someone says they're becoming Chinese, you're like, oh, they're getting canceled. Don't do that. Don't. Yeah, I lived in China for 7 years. I started studying Chinese at the beginning. I speak the language. I started speaking it at the beginning of college. And my buddies were very skeptical when I started learning it. They were like, you're just learning Chinese to pick up Asian chicks. That's why you're learning Chinese. And at the time I was like, guys, I'm a virgin and have never had a girlfriend. What makes you think I'm ready to do this in a second language? Okay, if anything, when I hit on girls, the one thing I'm confident in is English. I get rejected and I'm like, that sentence was perfect. I am killing it. My game is weak, but my grammar is strong. My friends are like, how did it go? I'm like, she understood. It's tough though. I am single and I'm on the dating apps. Anyone here on the dating apps? Cool. I've never felt this lonely in my life. They're like, no, we've got things together. We figured it out. It's just you, pal. A room of 100 people. Everyone else found someone. Yeah. I'm on the dating apps. One of the dating apps I'm on is Hinge, and Hinge recently launched a feature where they verify people on the app, kind of like on Instagram and Twitter. So they'll put a check mark next to your name so people know you are who you say you are, which is great, because before the only way to know someone was real was if they were ugly. You know, you would just stare at Tinder like, well, I'm not excited, so she's legit. No one's looking like that on purpose. I mean, let's face it, to scam someone on a dating app, you need to be hot. You do, okay? Like, no one's getting catfished in the other direction. That would be pretty cool, though, right? You know, you're waiting at the restaurant, then your date shows up, and you're like, Brad Pitt? I was expecting Steve Buscemi. This is wild. Yeah, but I'm 33. The other day, I went on a date with a girl who was 23. Cool, that is the reaction that deserves. Thank you for listening. No, I did realize she was too young for me, because at one point she spilled her glass of red wine, and instead of using a napkin to sop it up, she used her hand to scrape it back in the glass. Yeah, sometimes a girl does one thing and you're like, that's not a wife. At least not yet. Maybe she'll get there eventually. But yeah, I matched with a girl recently and she sent me a message. She said, the last 5 guys I've gone out with have all ghosted me. Are you gonna do that? I'm like, no. Okay, I'm like, I'm not like those other guys, okay? I will not go out with you. That was a big red flag you just shared. I want no part of you. But I do think that women get into relationships for better reasons than men do, though, you know? Because, like, if you ask a woman what she likes about her partner, you'll be like, oh, she put a lot of thought into this. If you ask a man what he likes about his partner, he will slowly incriminate himself. You know, like, we can think of a few things that aren't body parts, but eventually we run out. Like, I asked my friend the other day what he likes about his girl, and he's like, oh, she's beautiful, gorgeous, stunning, sexy, attractive. I'm like, dude, all of those mean hot. Every single one of them. Then he starts frantically searching for more adjectives. He's like, what about mesmerizing? I'm like, kinda still means hot. He's like, voluptuous? I'm like, hot and curvy. He's like, spiritual? I'm like, hot and liberal. He's like, exotic? I'm like, hot and not white. Yeah, when I'm not a comedian, I teach Mandarin. Alright. I feel like those were compulsory claps because I called you guys out on not clapping before. No, and I feel like maybe a third of you believed me when I said that. I get it, it's weird. I admit, it is weird me teaching Mandarin. You know, for once, an American is stealing Chinese jobs. You know? But since I've started teaching it, I've learned that some people are way too optimistic about their ability to learn a language. Like, I have this new adult student, he's like a 65-year-old New Yorker, and before our first lesson he goes, hey, I want to learn Chinese, but I don't need to become fluent. I'm like, don't worry, it's probably not gonna happen. Like, he was anxious about things being too easy. Like, hey, what's your biggest fear? That stuff will just happen for me. It's really weighing heavily on me. It's a big concern. Imagine if I was such a good teacher that this guy became fluent in Chinese against his will. People are like, wow, how are you so good at Mandarin? He's like, well, I got tricked. This guy said he was going to teach me a few words, but then he just kept going. Tried to say no, but I couldn't stop. He's in a job interview. They're like, do you know any other languages? And he's like, unfortunately, yes. I picked up some Chinese, but it was without my consent, okay? Nothing I could do. But I sometimes teach at like after school classes at a private school in the city, and I was in the school the other day, and they were having signs that they were having a bake sale for the people affected by the earthquake in Syria and Turkey, and I was like, oh, that's a nice thought. On the other hand, I was like, a bake sale to benefit disaster victims feels a bit insensitive. Like, oh, people are dying? Let's eat cake. That sounds good. Like, oh, did you hear about those starving people? Yeah, that's terrible. Oh, we should really do something about that. I don't know. I feel like if we really cared, we would just give them the money instead of having to be bribed with dessert. It feels very corrupt, like I'm a colonial governor. I'm like, yes, I will help the Africans, but first, I'll need a snickerdoodle. That is my price, and I'm sticking to it. Yeah. But no, I don't have any kids. I have a couple nephews. I actually have an older sister and a younger sister. And my younger sister, she's really cute. The other day she posted a picture of the three of us on Instagram with the caption, "Thank you for teaching me everything I know about being a strong, independent woman."
You did it!
And then she tagged me.
You did it!
But not our sister. Which made both of us look bad. Because it looked like her big sister never cared, and it looked like her big brother just mansplained being a lady. Like, hey, you want to be a woman? Let me tell you everything I know. From Joe Rogan. Okay? Yeah, when you go through puberty, you're going to want to eat a lot of elk meat, okay? That's... Yeah, when you're pregnant, no drugs, okay? No drugs. Except DMT. That opens up the baby's mind. You're gonna... Oh, wow. You're gonna want to do a lot of that in the third trimester. No, so as I said, I'm 33. My younger sister's a lot younger than me. She's like in her early 20s. She's a Gen Zer. So we have a tough time communicating sometimes because Gen Z has like their own logo and way of saying, you know, their own lingo, way of saying things, and I don't get it a lot of the time. You know, like the other day she was babysitting, and she called me, and I asked her what's up, like what she's doing, and instead of saying I'm babysitting, she goes, I'm with child. I'm like, what? Are you serious? And she's like, yeah, what's the big deal? I'm like, you're only 20. Are you sure you're ready for that? And she's like, yeah, I've been doing it since I was 13. I'm like, 13? How? She's like, I don't know, I just went there and did it, they paid me, and I left. I'm like, you're getting paid for this? She's like, yeah, I wouldn't do it for free. I'm like, well, how many times have you been with child? And she goes, dozens. I'm like, and I'm like, well, you didn't originally want to be with child this many times, right? And she's like, well, of course not. I'm like, well, then what's your secret for dealing with an unexpected situation? She's like, well, you gotta have a plan B. I was like, wow, I knew nothing about my sister's life. This is ridiculous. But yeah, she doesn't know. Luckily, she doesn't have any children. My older sister does. My older sister has a couple sons. The oldest one now is 5. Youngest one is about 5 or 6 months. Yeah. And the older one recently, they visited me in New York, so he's 5 years old, and he like loves vehicles of all kinds. So like New York City was amazing for him. And at one point, my sister goes like, "Oh, he loves ambulances, police cars, and fire trucks. Isn't that cute?" I'm like, "No, that's troubling. Because when those things are around, bad stuff is happening. Your son is an agent of chaos. He likes to watch the world burn. But he's 5 years old, so I can't call him on it. I just want him to be a decent human being, though. You know, so like when he gets excited and he yells, "Ah, fire truck," I want to be like, "Hey buddy, I know you're excited, but that guy's house is burning, okay? Show some respect. I know that ambulance was cool, but you shouldn't be this pumped about a heart attack. It's poor form." But no, my family's great. You know, it was funny, the other day when I told someone that I lived in China, they were like, "Oh, wow. I could never be that far away from my family." Which was their nice way of saying, "Wow, you abandoned your family." You know, but I get that question all the time. People are like, "Oh, was not seeing your family the hardest part of living in China?" I'm like, "No, learning Chinese. That, don't get me wrong, my family's great. They've got a few characters, but Chinese has thousands. You know, very tough to memorize." But no, I got that question so many times I would start messing with people. Like one time my friend asked me, he's like, "Oh, in China, is it hard being away from your mom?" I'm like, "Yes, but it's harder being away from yours." Okay, nice. You guys like that one. I knew you were cool. I knew you guys would be able to handle that one. No, but I love my parents. Sometimes your parents will drop like unexpected like nuggets of wisdom on you that you're not expecting. Like my mom visited me in New York recently, and she saw me do a couple of shows. She met some of the comedians I knew. One of the comedians she met is a very attractive lady, and my mom was like, "Oh, you should ask her out." I'm like, "Mom, we work together. It would be unprofessional." And she goes, "Well, do you want to be professional or do you want to be happy?" I'm like, "Wow, did she steal that from Socrates? Like that? That was brilliant." You know, I mean, maybe a little oversimplification of modern workplace dynamics, but for a mom, very observed and measured. You know, so then I'm like, "Mom, I can't pursue her because she's dating one of my friends." And my mom goes, "Well, if he's a good friend, he'll understand." I'm like, "Okay, that's the mother I know. That's the one I've come to expect." But no, she did visit me recently in New York, and my mom's health is like not the best, so she needs to take like a lot of medications. So she constantly has alarms on her phone going off for all the medications she has to take. And boy, do they interrupt everything all the time. And at some point I was like, it was like every 10 seconds. So I was like, "Mom, we got to manage these alarms. I'm sure we can get rid of some of these." So I'm looking through kind of what all these alarms are for. And one like says, "Take heart pill." One says, "Take liver pill." One says, "Take Percocet." I'm like, "Mom, Percocet's awesome. You shouldn't need a reminder for that." Okay? Nobody's problem with narcotics is forgetting to take them. If anything, people usually remember a little too well. You know? One time I saw my grandma pour whiskey at 10 a.m. and I'm like, "Wow, what a great memory." Still sharp as a tack after all these years. So anyways, we're in New York City, we're in Brooklyn, it's the evening, we're trying to go towards one of my shows, and we're walking on the sidewalk, and all of a sudden my mom goes, "Ben, I need a Percocet." I'm like, "See, you didn't need the reminder. Remembered all by yourself, what a good girl," you know? And like, this wasn't the best situation, but I didn't want my mom to be in pain, so I'm like, "Sure, let's do it here." So we're on the sidewalk, she goes up against like a post, and she takes out a Percocet, and a bunch of other pills. Okay, she really undersold this whole operation. You know, she brought out the whole pharmacy. And I don't know about you guys, you've seen people take pills before. How do you take pills? You put it in your palm, you pop it, right? Not my mom. She licked them out of her hand. Like that. With the desperation of someone who hadn't eaten in a week, okay? And I just stared at her and I was like, oh, my mom's a drug addict. And not even a cool one. That's the worst part. Like, nobody should be hooked on opiates, but if you are, at least play the saxophone or something. Have a cool talent. So let me reset the scene here. My mom is housing an entire cartel of narcotics up against a post underneath the subway tracks in the middle of Brooklyn in the dark. This is sketchy behavior, okay? It's like she's trying to stop gentrification all by herself. It's like, oh, you thought this was a good neighborhood? Well, we still got strung out junkies walking the streets, and that's just the Jewish ladies. Okay, don't go on that side of the street. That's Sadie Rabinowitz's corner. She'll mess you up, even on Shabbat. She don't care. She'll do it. Yeah. Oh, God. But, yeah, I don't mind. My mom's getting older. Obviously, we're all getting older. I don't mind it. I like talking to older people. They're wise. They know things. I like talking to really old people because when they talk about the past, they always say stuff like, we didn't have a lot, but we were happy. Yeah, which is a beautiful sentiment, right? It is. But I'm a millennial, and I feel like when we get old, we're going to talk a little differently. All right? We're going to be like, we didn't have a lot, but our parents did. So we mooched off of them as long as we could. Yeah, we invented getting kicked off health insurance. Yeah, the first generation that ever stressed about turning 26. That had never been a bad age before, ever, in history. Even when people died at 35, they're like, 26, you got 9 good years left. Now 26-year-olds are like, damn, why didn't I break my arm last year? In November, I had Blue Cross. Now if I call an ambulance, I can't retire. It's terrible. But yeah, thank you guys so much for coming out tonight. This is amazing. You could have stayed home. You could have watched Netflix. That would have been. That's always easier to do. There's too much on there. Like I saw this documentary the other day about one of those guys who climbs mountains without a rope. Yeah, and at one point they interviewed his girlfriend, and she was like, "Oh, when I first met him, he was really into drugs and had stopped climbing, but now he's doing so much better." And then the next shot was just him dangling off the edge of the cliff. I'm like, how's this better? If anything, you've just replaced drugs with an even more deadly habit. People are going to be at his funeral like, man, if only Rob had kept doing crack. He might still be alive today. Oh, God. Yeah. I mean, why would he climb rocks when he can just smoke them, you know? After he got clean, he really went downhill. Nice, you guys are a smart crowd. Yeah, I watched that. I also recently started watching the show Love on the Spectrum. Does anyone here watch that show? Yes. Okay, the bartender watches it? Cool, nice. Excellent. No, it's a good show. For the rest of you who don't watch it, it's a show about folks with autism looking for love. And yeah, and it really toes a fine line between celebrating autism, but also acknowledging the struggle. Okay, because they really talk these kids up. They're like, autism is a gift. You are so smart and so talented. You are an amazing person. And the kid's like, thanks. Do you have any advice for my date? And they're like, yeah, be a little less autistic. Yeah, the whole show is just be yourself, but also tone it down. You talk about snakes a lot. That's why we're on the show. What you're doing so far is not working. But no, this is fun getting out of New York City. I like traveling around doing shows. I recently went to New Orleans. Anyone ever been to New Orleans?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. So New Orleans is great. There's a sign in downtown New Orleans for the National World War II Museum. And it says, #1 attraction in New Orleans.
Bullshit.
Yeah. I was like, that's not right. Nobody goes to New Orleans for the World War II Museum. Let me rephrase that. Nobody knows that New Orleans has a World War II museum. Alright? But it was #1, according to TripAdvisor. I was like, wow, that is bad advice. Oh, you're looking for fun? Here's mankind's darkest hour. Like, no one's ever had a New Orleans experience like that, where they're like, man, the jazz and crawfish were great, but how about that Mussolini exhibit? Oh. Yeah, the French Quarter was all right, but how about the French surrender? Oh. Yeah, we threw some beads at this chick and she showed us her grandpa's Purple Heart. It was the best bachelor party ever. Yeah. Now I also went to Detroit. Yeah, it's a lot less fanfare than New Orleans. That's how it always goes. I'm in my early 30s, so everything I know about Detroit comes from Eminem songs and the movie 8 Mile.
That's all there is to know.
That's all there is. Okay. She's like, you got it all, honey. You don't need anything else. So as a result, when I went there, the whole time I was terrified of 8 Mile. The whole time when I was there. And then I ended up on 8 Mile, and it was really nice. Honestly. It was. I was like, well, it's the type of place you'd want to lose yourself, you know? Because, like, as soon as I saw how nice 8 Mile was, I started to, like, question, like, that song. Because I used to think that song was sad. But now when I hear lines like, there's vomit on his sweater already, mom's spaghetti, I'm like, wow, he's got warm clothes and a home-cooked meal. That sounds pretty good. You know, like if 8 Mile was as nice back then as it is now, there's no way Eminem could have written that song. Or it just would have been a little different, okay? Would have been like, lose yourself in the music, the moment you own it, you better never let it go. You only get one shot, do not miss your chance to blow. This opportunity comes pretty often, honestly. Your dad's an executive at GM, you'll be fine. You'll have the funds to be a failing white rapper for years. It'll all work out for you. So yeah, it's also just nice being in a place where just people drive their cars. Nobody drives in New York. Nobody has cars. We either take the subway or we take Uber. The other day I had to take an Uber, and before I was looking at the app before I got picked up, and it said Marcos will be picking you up. He knows English, Spanish, Italian, and Japanese. Yeah, I was like, wow, what does this guy not know? Yeah. After I got in, I found out he didn't. Yeah. After I got in, I found out he didn't know Greek, Russian, or how to drive. Yeah. No, Uber was like, hey, he might not get you there, but don't worry, he also won't shut up. Yeah, he spent the whole ride just yelling at other cars in 4 different languages. It was like It's a Small World, but for road rage. You know, I learned a lot. By the end of the ride, I knew Spanish, Italian, and how to order a lift. You know, that's what I learned. But no, I actually have a friend who speaks Greek, and the other day he was like, "Oh, I love being bilingual." Because if I don't want to talk to someone, I can just pretend like I don't speak English. You know? And that works for him because he's of Greek heritage. You know? Like, I'm bilingual, but I can't do that. Because the only other language I know is Mandarin. Now, someone might believe that I speak Chinese. But no one's gonna believe that I only speak Chinese. Like, oh, white guy with no English? Probably from Beijing. Yeah. Asian parents adopt Caucasian baby? Tale as old as time. We've seen it a bunch.
Oh my God.
So yeah, I do speak Chinese. I perform stand-up comedy in Chinese sometimes. And you guys are a smart crowd. You know what that means, but some people get confused by it for some reason. Okay? The other day, another comic came up to me and he was like, "Hey man, I heard that on stage you do a Chinese accent." Isn't that racist? I'm like, not if you're speaking Chinese. Honestly, thinking that's racist is kind of racist. Like, imagine if the situation was reversed and you had a Chinese guy speaking English with an American accent, and you're like, wow, that's weird. He's Asian. He shouldn't be able to make those sounds. How did he say library so perfectly?
Oh my.
Yeah, he just goes, oh my. Yeah, New York is a weird place. I keep learning new things about it. I found out the other day that New York has a sheriff.
Oh.
I had no idea, because in my head, every sheriff has a southern accent. So I'm just picturing a guy that's like, yo, we got a situation at the Empire State Building. Let's show them how we do it here in New York. Brooklyn born and raised. Biggie Smalls, baby, baby. That's what I'm imagining. Yeah, we got a lot of like street performers in New York, people who like perform on the subway. The other day in the subway station, I saw a guy who was like tap dancing, and he was just tapping away, tapping away. And then after a couple minutes, a guy was standing next to me, and he goes, "Isn't he good?" I'm like, I don't know. He's not dancing with anybody. I got no frame of reference. Also, I feel like tap dancing is one of the easier art forms to fake. It's not easy, but like if I started doing this, it might take you 30 seconds to know that I was faking. If I was bad at juggling, you would know immediately. Okay, I can stomp. I can't catch knives. That's... You know, so I did that joke at a show the other day, and an audience member goes, "You know what art form's easy to fake? Stand-up comedy." Oh. Yeah. He's like, all you have to do is go up there and talk. And I was so mad. I'm like, hey, up here I don't just talk, okay? I have this one bit where I also tap dance. So, not as easy as you think. Yeah. A lot of homeless people in New York. I saw one on the train the other morning, and I felt bad for him because he was in dire straits. But I felt even worse because he had a Jamaican accent. I don't know if you've ever heard that accent, but it's pretty chipper, festive, and boisterous. So this guy had a really sad life, but he sounded so happy about it. Like, he just gets on the train and he's like, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm struggling big time." I'm like, really? It seems like you're thriving. He's like, "Me wife left me, I've got nobody." I'm like, this is the best reggae song. He's like, "I'm hungry, just give me some breakfast, man." I just got off the train like, wow, good for him. He's doing so well. Yeah. No, I did live abroad for a while, but I don't think it made me any more worldly. Like, I still have a lot of very provincial thoughts. Like, the other day I met this girl, we started talking about our backgrounds. And, like, I go, "Oh, I'm Jewish." She goes, "Oh, I'm Italian." And I'm like, "Oh, where are you from? Boston? New Jersey?" She goes, "No, Italy." I'm like, well, that's weird. An Italian from Italy? You don't see that very often. She's like, "What? Italians are from Italy?" I'm like, not in America. I I know so many Italians, and none of them are from Italy. You're wrong. But that's the crazy thing about America, is we're like the one country where if someone says they're from a country and they're actually from that country, we're surprised. Like the other day I overheard a conversation. This guy said he was German, and the girl was like, "Oh, where are you from?" He goes, "Germany." She's like, "Oh, so you're like German. How dumb is that? You know, we hear German, we're like, "Oh, I get it, Pennsylvania." I do realize I'm saying that in a German club in Pennsylvania. Not sure if that makes the joke make more or less sense. I haven't figured it out yet. But my dad and his girlfriend actually took a trip to Italy recently, and they won't stop talking about it. They won't. I'm kind of annoyed by it, but I don't blame them, okay? I don't. Because when you tell people you went to Italy, they lose their minds. Okay? Like the one time I went, every person I told was like, "Oh, that's amazing. What was your favorite place?" And I was like, "I loved Salamanacci." They're like, "Oh, it's beautiful there." I'm like, "Really? Because I made it up." It's a fake place. But that's the thing. Italy's so awesome. You can say a fake place and people are still impressed. Okay? The rest of the world doesn't work like that. Because I lived in China for years. I traveled all around the region. I told people about my trips. I never once got an Italy-type positive reaction. Okay? Because Americans find Asian words unsettling. Okay? Like if you tell people you went to Palermo, they're like, "Ooh." If you say you went to Hong Kong, they're like, "Whoa, back off." You know? If you say you went to Torino, people get horny. You know? If you say you went to Zhangjiajie, people get traumatized. They're like, "Stop shouting, you sound on edge. Honestly, I think you need a vacation." I'm like, "No, I just took a vacation. I went to Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Hangzhou, Suzhou, Nanjing, Ningbo, Wenzhou, Kunshan, Kunming, Shijiazhuang. It was very relaxing." Okay, you guys have been so awesome. Are you ready for your next comedian?
Yeah!
Okay. Your next comic is